麦わら屋どうした？
次の時代を担う強力な海賊たちが新世界へ押し寄せてくる。カイドウを討てるのはそいつらだ。
How's it going, everybody? Due to popular demand, I am back with some Red Purple Luffy here. Apologies for the camera angle, it's a little ass, but other than that, we're going to be playing against some Shanks here, at least as long as my opponent leans over, we can see it past the glare there. But yeah, no, this is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. I ended up taking the play. I believe I won the dice roll here, and obviously Red Purple Luffy always wants to go first. I have such a clean hand here. We've got Zoro on 3. If that Zoro somehow gets dealt with, we've got a Bond Clay on 4, so things are looking pretty great for us here. And also being a 6k leader against Shanks means Shanks just can't free leader ability us. They're always gonna have to commit a card here, and we're just gonna do what I do best and go to Zoro here. If this Zoro sticks and we can swing with it at least once, maybe even play a Bond Clay on the next turn, we're gonna be up to 9 to 10 Dawn, like 2 turns faster than Shanks can get up there. And Shanks got a pretty solid turn 4 play. Got a Lucky Roo coming into play here. Lucky Roo is going to be able to deal with one of my bodies here. And I'm a bit in the tank here. I'm like, okay, Lucky Roo could easily deal with Zoro, right? I can swing 5k of Zoro, you know, leader effect, whatever, from Shanks' side. But instead, actually, we're going to swing 6k here, not giving Shanks' leader the free ability to just minus 1000k and stop its attack from going through. Opponent's just going to use a 2k here. I'm putting a lot of pressure on my opponent, and I'm actually going to decide to play the Bond Clay out first. I'm kind of baiting my opponent to actually deal with the Bond Clay instead of dealing with the Zoro. I kind of want that Zoro to stay around potentially. And so we're just going to play Bond Clay. We're going to swing 7k here into lead. Opponent's already given me 2 2ks in a hand, has not activated Shanks' ability yet, so could just use Shanks' ability plus a 2k to get out of it, but instead he's just going to go ahead and use the Lucky Roo, pop the Bond Clay, and that's kind of exactly what I wanted him to do. Now, in hindsight, you might think like, oh, Bond Clay is actually pretty great into later turns of the game, but Bond Clay just gets insta-killed by a lot of things, right? If he goes into Beckman, goes into Rayleigh, pretty much just anything like, you know, Big Shanks and Dragon are kind of like what I want to see if I'm playing Bond Clay, but Bond Clay is not going to be much longer for this world. Opponent's actually just going to commit 1 Dawn, swing 6k into Zoro. I decide he's not worth giving 2 cards for at this point because I am already way up there now at this point. We're going to go up to 9 Dawn, and then we can activate leader ability to go up to 10, and we're just going to slam down likely just the 9 beard here. Would really love to have 1 Dawn up for a good old Gum Giant, but Shanks hasn't really hit us yet, so going up to 8k leader here is going to be pretty great. We're going to go ahead and slap the 2k counter on there. Yeah, there we go. Going to go 9k at lead here. Just if you know the matchup at all, Red Purple Luffy just wants to be as aggressive as possible, right? Red's in the color for a reason, and so we're just going to keep swinging as hard as we can at Shanks, kind of ignoring most of the board here, just trying to get Shanks as low as possible, because once the big rush Shanks starts appearing and potentially in multiples, the game's going to get a little bit harder for me, especially only being at 3 life here. And Gum Giant doesn't as effectively get out of Shanks' range as it does some other cards, so can't really rely too heavily on that card to survive Shanks' attacks here. But me being an 8k leader makes this pretty awkward for my opponent. Yes, they could attach 2 to Yasop plus 2 to or at least 2 to lead, or 3 to lead to be able to swing in, try to pressure my hand. I only have 5 cards in hand, but that kind of just takes away the rest of their turn here. Gonna go ahead and play a Uta, gonna grab a Bin Beckman, gonna be able to trash a, what, 6k or less, but lucky for me, once Red Purple Luffy kind of gets to the late game, typically we're not gonna see anything smaller than like a 9 to 10k body at this point. So those Bin Beckmans are gonna be pretty useless here, and I assume these Utas are looking for something very specific, likely going to be a 10 cost Shanks that my opponent's going to want to add to hand, as that's going to be like their way to get back into the game here, to be able to contest some of these bigger bodies on board, because Rayleigh's not going to really do anything, but Beckman's not going to really do anything, and yeah, finds a 10 cost Shanks to try to get back to the game. But my opponent, my opponent's only at 8 Dawn here. I'm a full 2 Dawn ahead of my opponent. Going to be going into another 10 Dawn turn, going to be able to slam down another huge threat and just kind of keep it going here. Opponent does have some extra Dawn. Going to go ahead and attach 2. Going to swing 8k, just -1 on the new gate. I could just take this here, but I'm going to just use this Zoro in hand, just a nice little free 1k. And if my opponent decides to attach 4 Dawn to lead and swing 9k, I might just take it here, and they're going to do exactly that. We're going to pick up a Yasop and pass back to me. So I could use the Yasop just to become a 7k leader. Yasop, another great card in this deck. And what honestly makes this deck so good against Doflamingo right now is just the new gates making your leader an 8k, the Yasop earlier in the curve can make your leader a 7k, the kid, a 7-cost kid can keep making this 7k, really tightens Dofi's resources. But we're going to go ahead and we set 9 aside. We have exactly what we need now. We've got a big threat as well as a Gum Gum Giant to hold up here. We're just going to go ahead and send, I think that 10's going at lead here, because again, we just want to pressure board. Yes, we could have tried to deal with Yasop here, but at this point, and funny enough, opponent hits a Gum Gum Red Hawk, and that trigger gives something minus 10k power for the turn, and he just chooses my leader. So my leader's a, what, negative 16k right now. So my leader will not be swinging here, and I'm going to play Rush Luffy. We're going to use Leader's Effect to pull Dawn back here, end up picking up another new gate potentially for future turn. And I think what we're going to do here is maybe just attach 1 Dawn and just go and swing 11k at lead here. I'm going to try to set Shanks down to 2, maybe, and then hopefully try to clean up the game the next turn or the turn after, just because I know that there's a big old Shanks coming down right now. My board, I feel like I can pretty heftily protect my board at this point. A Gum Gum Giant will be able to save any of my bodies on board, because there'll be 9Ks into 12Ks, so that plus 4K is going to be enough to save them. So I'm feeling pretty confident here, especially if my opponent does decide to tap 10 for Shanks. They're going to play a Shanks, but not the Shanks I expected. That's the 10-drop Shanks that KOs a, what, 12K power or less? Was not expecting one of my threats to be dealt with here. Was really just expecting a Rush Shanks that I could counter out of. So that does slow down my curve a little bit. That does put a little bit more pressure on me here, as they have a 12k body on board. We managed to find a kid here, and now I'm kind of thinking out my opportunities, right? So we could play the Nami, trash a kid, draw 2 cards. We could also play the Yasop that turn and hold up a Gum Gum Giant. So we could go a little wide right here to try to stifle my opponent's ability to fight back. Because there is a pressure to a degree, like a time pressure as you're going through the game. You're only at a 3 life lead. You're just going to continue to go lower here. We're going to play out the kid. Kid's going to -1. We're going to give 1k to the leader. Going to be a 7k leader now, and we're just going to use Luffy ability to ramp back up. We could play out the Nami blocker if we really wanted to, but we could also keep up a Gum Gum Giant, which Gum Gum Giant is so good. Just such a card. We're going to go ahead and just swing 10k lead here, trying to set my opponent down as far as low as possible. Could represent another 10k from leader swing, keeping 1 up from Gum Gum. So opponent has to kind of think here, when is the time to go ahead and start potentially countering out of things. I don't know what his hand looks like, but I know Shanks often can brick quite a bit. So opponent's going to go ahead and just, he's going to -1 and then counter out with 5k on the 10k swing, which is pretty great. And I think we're actually, we've got 3 Dawn to mess with here. We're going to attach 3 Dawn to lead. I think we're just going to continue to push as aggressively as possible. This could have gone at Yasop, but I feel relatively safe here. Hoping my opponent continues to just focus my board instead of focusing my life. If they do manage to focus my life, I think the Gum Gum Giant plus a 2k and a few 1ks, being a 7k leader, will make life a little easier here. Though, honestly, those big Shanks are a little bit scary to deal with. Being a 7k leader with a Gum Gum Giant, still not enough to get out of those attacks. Going to need a 2k more to survive here. But opponent's starting to develop their late game. I kind of just got in really quickly here, and just hoping here that we can keep the momentum going. If opponent sees a blocker, my life's going to get a little bit harder here, as I don't have a really good way to deal with blockers. Specifically in this deck, I have thought about running like the 7-cost Sanji as a way to like rest blockers to get through. Honestly, this deck list is tight, very tight. But opponent thinking pretty hard as to what they want to do. I know they have a 10-cost Shanks in hand. They did just dump a bit of counter this last turn here, and just kind of thinking what they're going to potentially do here. Only 5 cards in hand. But if you made it this far in the video and you're liking this type of content, like the POV, like the other series, definitely subscribe, join the crew. Always looking for new crew members of all aboard the All Blue. And opponent's going to go and swing 12k. I think that 12k is going at lead here. I'm very incentivized to take it because I know Shanks is coming down. So this next, I assume a Shanks is going to come down. If Shanks decides to target one of my characters, me like spending all that counter to prevent myself from going to 1 life would have been wasted here. So I'm just kind of expecting the Shanks to come down and a swing into my Luffy is probably what I expect to happen, but if my opponent does go for that, I will be able to get out of it with a Gum Gum Giant. So there's also just this thought of maybe them blockering up here. Maybe that would be the better play at this point, because things are looking a little scary. My opponent has, I think that's 3 Utas on board, and a Shanks. There's a hella glare on one of those cards, but I'm very certain that's maybe another Uta. Or no, yeah, it is another. All right, opponent's gonna play out 10 cost Shanks, gonna stick it right in the glare, and now all my board just a little bit smaller, but still pretty resilient here. If my kid was tapped, it would have been a lot scarier for me, as that would have been a huge point swing there. But opponent's gonna go and swing 12k. I think that 12k is going at my life yet again, and now I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna go ahead, and I think we're just gonna counter out of it here. Now, honestly thinking here, because we picked up a Gear 5 Luffy off the swing, so we're actually going to take that hit here, and the opponent's just going to pass it back. Me being a 7k leader makes it really hard for them to swing in with me with any of their other threats, which is pretty great here. So two less attacks I have to worry about. And now going to go to my turn here. Opponent does not have any blockers. Opponent has 1 life, 5 cards in hand. I've got a Gear 5 Luffy, so I'm feeling pretty confident here. We're going to go and swing 10k at lead here, which is going to require quite a few cards to get out of hand. But if my opponent decides to commit all the cards on this swing, I can pretty nicely take him out in the next 2 here. Opponent's just going to go ahead and counter out of that first swing here. 2k, 1k, 1k, or maybe I think it was a 2k, 1k, 2k. Opponent's going to trigger a Gum Gum Red Hawk again twice. My leader's going to get 10k, minus 10k, and that makes us have to go for the Gear 5 here. So if because my opponent Gum Gum triggered me, I couldn't just attach everything to lead, so I'm just going to use effect here, and we're going to have to just use Luffy's effect to get the Dawn back, and then go to my next turn to clear that status effect off of my leader. Can't believe my opponent hit 2 Gum Gum Red Hawk triggers out of life, giving something minus 10k power for the turn. Pretty insane, honestly. Like, it's kind of a pseudo beige here. We're gonna go ahead and swing 12k, and that's gonna be enough to finish the game here. Opponent only had 1k in hand. I had already used the minus effect, so it's likely I could have just attached 10 to lead and swung 6k on that previous turn, but didn't want to risk it. But anyways, if you like this type of gameplay, definitely subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.